This is Yasharala of the Through the Fire podcast, your Black family advocate, coming back with the first podcast. This is the first installment, and I'm glad to say I finally reached this point where I am recording this. I don't want to go into too much background, but I'll do like a little brief thing. I'm Yasharala. Of course, that is not my birth name. I prefer not to give my birth name. Similar to Malcolm X, I'm reaching a point where I try not to even acknowledge it, right? Malcolm had reached the point in his life, when his name was changed, once he became, a minister in the Nation of Islam. He didn't even want to use the name Little anymore. And he kind of didn't even want to tell people that his name was, his government or given name, whatever you want to call it, was Little. So he referred to himself as Malcolm X, of course, until his name was changed to Al-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. So I changed my name, the most I'll tell you about my name is that it's a Scottish name, and I'm not Scottish. I'm African American, so-called, and I'm a Black man in the United States of America. And as far as I know, I don't have any Scottish ancestry. So why would I have a Scottish name? Of course, that comes with a very complicated history rooted in, slavery and, all types of things. But just to give you some background on me, I am an Israelite by faith and an Israelite by blood, but this podcast, while it will be influenced by the fact that I'm an Israelite, it won't be specifically about that subject matter. I will put up lessons on YouTube that will specifically address that subject matter, but the podcast is more designed to address the Black family. This is where we discuss all things related to the Black family. Now, why am I in this space? Why am I in this conversation? The reason why is the conversation has become so ugly. It's just become so nasty. The impression that you get from social media is that Black men and Black women no longer love one another, right? Black men have become so unlovable, and Black women have become so unlovable, not just to our enemies and to society and the people around us who oppress us, but it's reached the point where we've become unlovable to one another. And that has never been the intentions of the Most High in terms of bringing us together as a people, right? For us to get to this point where the conversation is so, it's just so ugly, the nasty things that I hear Black men say about Black women and the nasty things that I hear Black women say about Black men, it has reached an all-time high. And the reason why is because of social media. Social media has become the dominant voice speaking to us and bringing us messages and bringing us these negative vibrations. It's become the dominant voice, and there must be some pushback. There absolutely must be some pushback at the ugliness that's going on around the conversation of Black love, Black dating, Black marriage, whatever you want to call it. So this is the reason why I'm in this space. I'm in this space more so because it is a calling more than it is anything else, because it's been, part of my concern for a very long time. One of the things that one of the statistics that I ran into is that as of 2016, between the years 2016 and 2022, Black people have had 50,000, nearly 50,000 less children than they've had in previous years. And that actually would coincide with the growth and the spike of social media, like IG and TikTok. Though these platforms have been around for a little while longer than 2016, the fact of the matter is the activity and the conversation and the dating apps, and all of these components have all created almost like a perfect storm, right, to create what we're seeing in the culture today. And that's unfortunate because we're getting such a slighted view of it, a slanted view of it, a skewed view of who we are and what we mean to one another. The view is very distorted. And there's so much anger, so much rage. And the anger and the rage, it seems personal. It feels personal. It's so mean, it feels personal, right? And what happens is people have these terrible experiences in real life, right? These horrible experiences in real life. And what they do is they tether these experiences and the emotions that they have from these experiences, they tether them to data. And then they go out in social media and start saying, well, the statistics shows us that this, and the statistics shows us that black women are this, and the data shows us that black men are that. And the data has, and from this kind of conversation, it kind of spreads to everybody, because we all are looking at these videos and we all are looking at these conversations, and we're being impacted by it. We're now taking on the emotional attitude of the folks who are presenting material before us, and we're going in the wrong direction. We're going in the absolute wrong direction. Even though we have produced 50,000 less children, it doesn't mean that we have stopped producing children. We're still producing children at a very high rate. And as a result of us producing children in this vitriolic environment, in this dysfunction, and these broken homes and all this broken emotion, this unaddressed emotional problems and stuff like that, what we're seeing now, especially amongst younger people, is this disdain really for black love and black marriage. And that's terrible. As a member of Gen X, I often feel, and I often say this, I feel some shame and some responsibility that my generation have, like we've handed this down to millennials, and we've handed this down to Gen Z, this ugliness where, marriage and divorce is concerned. I think the boomers were the first to really embrace divorce the way they did, right? Because the generation before the boomers, I believe that was the silent generation. And then before the silent, I think it was the great generation. But those generations were very religious, right? So being very religious folks, they had certain values when it came to marriage and so on and so forth. And boomers were the first to really break away and say, I am not going to be religious. I'm going to get divorced, and I'm going to be sexually liberated, and so on and so forth. This is where ideas like feminism began to really, find, there's different strands of feminism, right? But feminism and the independent woman, especially the independent black woman, began to really take root with boomers. And divorce became like a big thing, and stepdad became a part of the conversation for the first time, at least at a much larger scale. By the time I grew up as a Gen X, grew up in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, and so on, it became kind of odd if you had a friend whose parents were still together. So we normed divorce. We normed bad relationships. We normed those things, and we packaged it, and we put it in every form of media we possibly could. For example, some of you may be too young to have heard of this show, but go on YouTube and look it up when you get a minute. But there was a show called The Odd Couple, that came out in the 70s, and it was a show about two divorced men who were roommating because their wives had put them out. These are some of the ways we began to norm divorce, right? And then by the time my generation came along, and hip hop came along, we began to become very vocal about at least black males, finally had an apparatus where they could become vocal about their machismo and their issues with black women, calling black women all types of negative things. Now, this was before, black women got on the mic, because remember, black men were dominating the mic. There were black female rappers back in the day, Funky 4 Plus One More. The One More was a female rapper. You had Roxanne Shante. I'm trying to think of the early female rappers. MC Light. She's not as early as the previous women, but they were there. But nevertheless, in the earlier part of hip hop was black male dominated, right? And being black male dominated, for the first time, you hear our machismo and our attitudes and tones coming through, and we're calling black women the B word and calling them hoes and just all this negative vitriolic language that we were using, that we were, kind of, taking on from the culture around us, right? But what was happening in the real world? What was happening in the culture? What was fueling that? These were black men who were coming from extreme poverty, right? And what was the circumstances that precipitated that poverty, right? Oftentimes in these urban areas where black men were growing up, they were growing up in environments where their mothers were on welfare and their fathers were pushed out of the home. And so all of this stuff was happening around them, and they were getting these very negative ideas from those experiences, and trying to understand them and trying to articulate them when you're very young, when you're only, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. The reason why I go back that young is because this is when you're beginning to talk to your friends about the things that are happening in your real life, whether you're just roasting. That's why your mother this, and your father's not home, and you never even met your dad. Like you roasting one another and stuff like that. And you begin to start to learn that other people around you are going through the same things that you're going through at home. And so what ends up happening, by the time you're writing rhymes, you're 14, 15, 16 years old, you're basically just articulating the messages that you're receiving from, your neighborhood, your homies, your friends and stuff like that. That's basically what's entering into you. That's what's coming through in your raps. And then you're putting that stuff out on wax, and then the media's pushing it out there and stuff. And that's really the first form of social media. And then girls begin to get the idea, like, wow, these, look how they talk about us, and then the girls' time came around. We actually live in the era of the time of the females and stuff like that. Now, of course, you did have your Queen Latifahs, your Moni Loves, your Salt and Peppers, and so on and so forth, who got on the mic and did their thing, and they had great careers and so on. But then we evolved now when it comes to female rappers. We've evolved to this age where we have basically stripper rappers. I don't know what else to call them. I'm sorry if that's offensive, but I just don't know what else to call them. They come from, a background of stripping and twerking and so on and so forth. And they're on the mics now, and they have their message that they bring forth, and it's not very favorable. Sorry about the plane in the background. I'm literally recording this in my living room, so there's going to be noises in the background. I'm gonna do my best to take it out. Hopefully you don't even hear it, but if you do hear it, I apologize about that. But to the point, it's like, when we hear their messages come through, it's not very favorable. It doesn't paint us in a very favorable light, and maybe someday someone should do a project where they really just get all of these negative messages and kind of like, tape them all together in one, and then we can hear all of the ugliness that's really coming out of, just all the media. Like, I said social media initially, but it's really not just social media. It's just all media. It seems to be driving home, this horrible idea of, black love being in a really bad spot right now. So what I'm hoping to do with this podcast is do the best I can prayerfully, through the spirit of the Most High, is to try to address where I feel we're going wrong. I'm no expert, I'm no expert. I'm not trying to come at it that way. Who am I? Right. I'm a black man. I'm 55 years old. Right. I'm married to a black woman for 16 years. We have 4 children together that we're raising. Our marriage has its ups and downs. It hits its bad spots, but what we have is love and consistency. We have commitment. We don't give up on each other. We believe in one another. We believe in our marriage. Primarily what holds us together is that love. And what holds us together is our sense of spirituality and our commitment to one another and our commitment to family. And those are the values that she and I, my wife and I, possess, just was innate in us, I suppose, because I do come from a broken home. My wife doesn't necessarily, but she comes from a home where there's been a lot of trouble, and I'll go into that at another time. But I think that for my wife and for myself, our sense of commitment and our family values are personal to us. They're individual, and we were fortunate to find one another, and to fall in love and make the choice to start a family. We were fortunate to do that, because we could have been exactly where anyone else in the culture is. So I don't hold myself higher than anyone in the culture. I just think that from my experiences, I have something to offer when it comes to this conversation to hopefully to move us in a different direction. Right. So this is episode 1 of the podcast. Right. This has been a long time coming for me. I've been wanting to do this since 2012, and finally, it's here. So episode 1 is called the top 5 reasons Black people need to stop dating. I think I'm going to revisit this topic more than once, because I know that telling Black people to stop dating is almost like telling Black people to stop breathing, right? But I want to try to, do my very best to convince Black folks as to, to understand why and how dating is actually harming us as a people and not helping us. Dating is harming us as a people. And dating is not helping us, and we have to stop. We have to stop to get ourselves together. So the top 5 reasons why, at least with this episode, why Black people need to stop dating. Number 1 is we don't know each other. Black men and Black women, we don't know each other, right? We are strange to one another, right? We're strange to one another. And part of the reason why is because Black men don't fully understand what Black women value, and Black women don't fully understand what Black men value. From my perspective, I'm just gonna do the best I can to shine a little light on this. But the number one thing that Black men want is to be out from under the domination and the rule of others. That's the number one desire of Black men. Okay. And I know folks to say, well, not all Black men want that. No, not all Black men articulate that. Right. Not all Black men are going to tell you that. Black men are very fearful of even saying that. Right. Because the reality is, throughout history, we could have been, and we have been, severely punished for even articulating the fact that we don't want to be under the domination rule of another man. We don't want that. We never did. We never did. We have been beaten into submission. We have been beaten into a position where we're under the domination rule of another man. But that's our number one concern. So when you begin to talk about how Black men don't do well in these institutions when it comes to education, finances, housing, of course, prison, whatever the justice system, whatever the institution is, right? Black men carry within them, deep inside of them, a strong resentment for those institutions. And Black women don't understand that. Black women do not understand that. You know it, but you don't understand it. You don't feel what we feel, right? You don't feel what we feel when it comes to that. But that's a very, very, very big part of who we are, right? We're tired of being dominated and ruled over, right? So if that's the number one thing that a Black man wants, the number one thing that a Black woman wants is survival, right? Survival day to day. That's the number one thing she wants. She wants to be safe. She wants to be secure, right? She wants to know that she's going to be okay, that she's not going to worry about food, water, shelter, those kind of things. Like she just wants that. She wants to be okay. So when a black woman and a black man enter into an institution to do business there, let's say an educational institution, you go in there to get an education. A black woman is looking for how she can get herself a degree, how she can get herself a job and get herself settled in so she can take care of her day-to-day needs. A black man enters that institution thinking, how is this going to connect to him becoming free someday? Right? Now, what can happen is that black man can be brainwashed over the course of his life that he don't have to concern himself with freedom, but he's going to keep bumping into the reality that he's not free. Right? Or that black man could have his eyes wide open and he can ask himself, how is coming to this institution going to set me free? And he has to make a decision. Either he has to give up on his concern with being free and just try to go ahead and get his degree and get a job, or he's going to have to try to parlay this experience somehow into him becoming free. And that's the thing about freedom itself. Freedom itself is so undefined. What is freedom? What does it mean to be free? And can a degree get me there? Whatever freedom is for a black man, what it starts with is that I have no master ruling over me. And then folks will say, but what are you talking about? You are free. You're not a slave. No. I'm not saying I'm in chattel slavery. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying in chattel slavery. What I'm saying is that I'm ruled over by another man, right? I can buy some land. If that other man make a decision that I need to get up off that land, he can maneuver things in his law and he can maneuver things with his police department. He can maneuver things with his government and get me up off that land. If I buy a house and he decide, hey, I need to build a road here. He can maneuver things and build that road. If he decides me walking down the street in this neighborhood is irritating him, he can maneuver things and get me arrested, get me locked up, beat over the head, and get the message through my head that I better not walk down through that street anymore. I know that there are many black folks among us who would like to think that that type of racism is over now. We don't deal with that anymore, but it's not the case. I was looking on IG yesterday, and this brother, I think it was in North Carolina, and their family is originally from Jamaica. I can't remember the brother's name, but he's only 16 years old, and he was just killed. I'm not sure when he was killed, but he was killed recently. And this was something racial, some kind of racial thing going on. His father came to the United States of America, and he built up his business and everything. And he sent his son to the school because he heard it was the best school, and and some kind of racial thing happened. The boy literally called his father while he was running from his tormentors. He called his father while he was running from his tormentors. See, that hits black men with such gravitas when we hear stories like that. It's not just George Floyd, it's all of them. Philando Castile, it's all those stories. It just hits us with so much gravity, so much weight. And that's what we want to be free from. We want to be free from that. Right? But black women want something different, and it's understandable. Black women want day-to-day survival, want the rent paid. The light bill must be paid. The bills must be paid. Who set these bills up? Who positioned us like this where we have to pay bills to them? But anyway, that's the first point. We don't know each other. Until we can understand one another, know one another, we can't be of service to one another. Because in marriage, the number one thing that we have to concern ourselves, marriage is an act of service more than anything else. We have to be in service to one another. How can I serve my spouse? That's what the thought process have to be. And how can you serve someone that you don't know, you don't fully understand? I don't understand your way. I don't understand the desires of your heart, you know? So my point is we need to spend more time getting to know one another, getting to understand one another, understand what hurts one another, what we're hurting about. What's all the anger about? Now, what I just mentioned is like general stuff. There's also personal stuff that's going on, individual stuff. We need to spend more time getting to know one another, right? Before we start sleeping with one another, having sex with one another, and producing children, right? So that's the first reason we don't know one another. That's the first reason why black men and black women need to stop dating. The second reason is dating is undefined and is non-committal. I've seen it before where you have two people in a relationship and they're so-called dating, and they have two very different ideas of what they're doing. I watched a young man get interviewed, right? Him and his girlfriend are walking down the street, and she has on these very skimpy shorts. And I can't remember what kind of shirt she had on, but they're walking down the street. And so this guy asked him, could he interview them? He said, oh, that's your girl. Yeah, we together. We're in a relationship. How long y'all been seeing each other? They've been dating for like about 8 months, 9 months, something to that effect. Not a very long time. They're young. They're very young. And they're dating. So he said, okay, so you okay with her wearing stuff like this? So he says, no, I'm not okay with her wearing stuff like this, And so she begins to explain, yeah, but it's fine if I wear it, because I pick out my own clothes. I could wear what I want to wear. You can't tell me what to wear, And she was saying it as calmly as she could and as lovingly as she could, but she wanted to make him, make sure he understood that he cannot control what she wears, And he's like saying, well, I'm not trying to control what you wear, but I told you that it bothers me when you dress like this because, guys are looking at you and everything. And, that just bothers me, And she's like, well, you need to be secure. Like, you can't be insecure and worrying about other guys looking at you. If I'm with you, why are you worrying about what other guys? Okay. So this is the point I'm making is that they're both in the same relationship. They both are in the same relationship because they're dating and they have two different ideas about what should be going on in that relationship. Right. And it's not as simple as she's wrong and he's wrong. No, they're wrong for each other. She needs to find someone who is okay with her dressing like that. And he needs to find someone who is just the nature of her to cover her body. That's just simply what it is. So this is the problem with dating. People tend to date one another simply because the person's attractive to them. That's it. I'm dating this person because they're attractive to me. And it's nonsense. It's nonsensical, So dating is undefined and is non-committal. There's no real commitment in dating. Oh, we're together for a year. We're together for 2 years, together with this person for 3 years, this person for 2 months, that person for 6 months. It's just a non-committal thing. And here's the problem with all the dating is in 9 times out of 10, all this dating is being accompanied by sex, So folks are really just spending time with one another and having sex and moving on, and that's if they can move on, because sometimes from the dating and the having sex, you end up with, you may not be committed to that spouse, but you end up having children with them or a child with them, right? A child or children with them, or, or get a sexually transmitted disease, or infection, whatever they call it nowadays. But this is why dating is this is just reason 2. Dating is undefined and is non-committal. So it makes no sense to date. So the dating should also stop. Right. And reason number 3, choosing a person to date requires a different skill set compared to choosing a person to marry. Now, why am I bringing that up? Because the point of two people coming together is for the purpose of marriage. It's not for the purpose of having non-committal sex. That's whoredom, coming together for those purposes, but choosing a person to date, you simply looking at what they look like, how they smell, how their hair is, and, things of a superficial nature. Those are not things that, those are not skills that you use to choose somebody to marry. Right. And I know a lot of people, especially in the younger generations, like, I'm not getting married anyway. I don't care about marriage and so on and so forth. Right. But let's say something happens and you change your mind. These are just things that you should know. Right. Just take it from, from your older uncle here, that these are just things you should know. Nothing about choosing a partner to date translate well to choosing a partner to marry. right? Those things are extremely different, right? So that's reason number 3. So reason number 4 is dating does not translate well to marriage, right? So even within dating, you don't even pick up the skill set that you need to be in a marriage, right? Because when you're dating, you're intentional about dating, right? And when you are building towards a marriage, you should be intentional about building towards a marriage, right? Let me give you an example, right? So you could be dating someone and not really care about their credit score or the amount of debt they're in or if they owe taxes. If you're dating them, you do not care about that. As long as they perform in the date, while you're dating, as long as they perform, up to what you require of them. Like, for example, they're available for you to go watch a movie. They're available for you to, move some furniture in your house. They're available for you to have your sexual escapades with and all that kind of stuff, right? But that's it. But when it comes to marriage, their credit score is going to impact you. The debt they're in is going to impact you. Taxes that they owe, that's going to impact you. Everything impacts you when it comes to marriage. Do they snore? Do they fart when they sleep? Are they farts rancid and fill up the room? Like, all of these things impact you in marriage that won't impact you in dating, right? So you don't even pick up the skill set you need from dating that translates to marriage, right? And so that's reason number 4. Let me read reason number 4 again, just in case it was forgot. Reason number 4 is dating does not translate well to marriage. Reason number 5, producing children under the terms of dating leads to broken homes. And that's one of the problems with dating, right? So dating, if we were to define in reality what dating really is just sleeping with someone until something happens. That's all dating is. You spending time with them and having sex with them until something happens, right? And if you're the kind of person like me that believes in soul ties, that believe that, you walk away with a piece of the person that you slept with, if you're the kind of person like me that believes in that, then you also believe that when you jump from person to person to person and having all this sexual contact with them, you understand that it makes you less likely to build a bond with the person that you ultimately will try to marry and have children with. You're less likely to be able to build a bond with them because of all of the bonding that you've done with other people in the past, men or women, right? But if we were to define dating just really just, having sex until something happens. And often the something that happens is pregnancy. And pregnancy really tests the mettle of your relationship. It really tests whether or not that relationship is legitimate. And what people often find out is that their relationship is not legitimate because the pregnancy makes you, it immediately makes you think of the reality of the commitment that you have to this person now, not just the child, but the person that is, that you're having the baby with, whether you're male or female. And once you get smacked with that reality, it wakes you up from the dating. Like, wait, what the heck am I doing? I don't want to have a baby with you, and what happens often with a lot of males is we immediately want to pull out, like, hey, get an abortion. Like, how can we stop this process so I can, get back to my normal life, right? And then sometimes you have a female says, hey, you know what? I don't want to have an abortion because I don't believe in killing babies, and that just happened to this famous podcaster from the show Fresh and Fit, I believe. It's been trending on YouTube a couple of weeks back. Apparently one of them got a young lady pregnant and she wanted to keep the baby and he didn't, and that adversely affected his brand because I think I don't watch Fresh and Fit, but I think he positioned himself in his brand where like he's the type of guy that this kind of thing could not happen to. I'm not sure what the whole drama was about, to be honest, but this is the reality of dating. You're just really having sex with someone. That's really all dating is: spending time with someone and having sex with them. And then when a child, when you produce a child, you like, hey, get an abortion. But nevertheless, now you're tied to this woman if she chooses to keep the child. If you ever watch Paternity Court, you see this a lot, where a man is like, now you're forever tied to this woman that you've created this child with, until you die, it's till death do you part. You all are one until death do you part. Even if you move on and marry somebody else, even if you live your life like some of these rappers do, and where they just completely ignore their children, make children and ignore them, you're still tied to that child, right? Because you're still that child's biological parent, and that child is still going to be thinking about you, and you're still going to think about that child every now and then. You're going to do your best not to, but they're going to come to mind because you're human. They're going to come to mind. And that's for now it's till death do you part. Now, one of you have to die in order to sever that relationship. Either you die, the child die, or the mother dies. That's the only way to sever the relationship, because now you're bonded. This is not the best circumstance to produce children under. If you're thinking responsibly, and if you're thinking, hey, you know what, I want to have children under the best circumstances, dating is not the path. Dating is not the path to producing children in marriage and under the best circumstances, right? I do want to point out to you, because I think I'm going to come back to this and add some more things to it, because this is a top 5. I think ultimately this is going to be a top 10, because I have 5 more reasons that I can add to it, at least 3 that I can think of. But I think I could squeeze 5 out of it to add to this list, of why Black men and Black women need to stop dating. Because one of the things that I would mention too is that spiritually we need the reprieve, right? We need to step back and get ourselves together on a spiritual level, right? Because we're not right. We're not right. We're not in our right minds. We're not in our right minds spiritually. We're not in our right minds mentally, and we need to get that. We need to get that together. Right. And if you've been out there and been sexually active, you need a time of celibacy. Right. You need a time of celibacy. You need a time to get yourself right mentally. You need time to get yourself right spiritually, so you can attract someone who is on your wavelength. Right. That is a life partner for you, someone that you can be with for the rest of your life, and not just someone who is in and out of your life and someone who is just in and out of your bed. But those are my top five reasons. Please share yours in the comment section. Maybe it's something I can bring on to the next podcast if I see something that kind of sparks, some conversation and sparks my interest. But these are my top 5 reasons why Black people need to stop dating. Thank you for taking the time to listen to episode 1. Like and subscribe and share. If you got anything out of this, please comment in the comment section. If you do subscribe, make sure you hit that bell and follow. I have not yet figured out when I'm going to upload these podcasts, if I'm going to do it weekly or like twice a week, or I haven't figured out the rhythm yet, because again, I'm just figuring everything out. So that's about it. This is El Yaya Sharala of the Through the Fire podcast. And my prayer is through this process, we can, impact the conversation. I won't be as audacious and say change the conversation. Maybe that'll happen. I'm not sure. But we can at least impact the conversation and get ourselves back right. Because we're on a very nasty path. It's unhealthy. It's unwise. It's ungodly, So my prayers are always with you, and peace. Until next time. Peace out.